Hey there, boys and girls, and welcome to another episode of Luthorville. This episode is going to be all about selling my tiny house. Now, notice I did not say selling Luthorville, because I have no intention of selling Luthorville. I love my land, I love the property, and I plan to hold on to that. But the experiment of the tiny house, I think that chapter has come to an end. So the good news is, now it is your opportunity to enjoy the tiny house that I built. One of you out there, I'm certain, will be the one who purchases Galatea Meridian, which, in case you forgot, or if this is the first time you're watching any of my videos, that's the name of the tiny house. I called the tiny house Galatea Meridian, and the property is Luthorville. And I'm Eric, by the way. I always put my name down on the bottom of the screen, but some people don't notice that, and they'll call me Luther. I'm like, what? No, it's Luthorville is the property. That's not my name. Anyway, why am I selling the tiny house? Well, you know what? Let's take a little... Oh, by the way, that's my Jeep. Yeah, got rid of the big old Ram 5500. And I'll be doing a video on that as well. But this video is all about selling the tiny house. So let's do something we've never done before. I always set up a tripod and just talk to you good folks. Let's take a walk. So I've walked over to a kind of a little edge, little corner of Luthorville that I haven't shot a whole lot of videos in. But why am I getting rid of the tiny house? Well, honestly, when I started this whole project, when I began this back in 2014, I didn't really know how long I was going to do it. You know, I had people ask me that all the time. They said, "Oh, are you going to live there for the rest of your life, you know, out in the desert?" And I would honestly tell them, I don't know. You know, the duration for which I was going to do this was never something that I really thought about. I knew that it was something I wanted to do, and I'd kind of go from there. Now, I did have kind of one little timeline in my head, which was 1 year, right? I said to myself, if I do this, and I do it for less than a year, then I'll feel like I failed. I'll feel like I didn't really commit to doing this, right? Because I felt like being in this completely new, different environment, I had to experience all the seasons. I had to give it at least 1 year. And I spent almost 4 years being in the desert all by myself. And it was awesome. And it was wonderful, and so much more than I thought it would be, you know. I feel like Roy in Blade Runner, you know. I've seen things you people wouldn't believe.
I've seen things you people wouldn't believe. Attack ships on fire off the shoulder of Orion. I watched sea beams glitter in the dark near the 10-house gate. All those moments will be lost in time, like tears in rain. Time to die.
I've seen a full moon rise over those mountains. I've seen fog so thick that you would not be able to see the Jeep from here. I've experienced things out in the desert that were so much more beautiful and greater than I ever thought they would be. But life is all about moving forward, right? And I think that it's true for a lot of people who really want to experience different and new things in their lives, that everything is a bit transient. Everything's a bit temporary. And on one hand, that can seem kind of sad, because when we have great experiences and we do these cool things, we want to hold on to that. But of course, you can't have new experiences if you keep holding on to the old ones. So, letting go and moving on is sort of part of the whole adventure. So it's time. It is time to let go, and it is time to move on. Now, like I said, I'm keeping Luthorville. I love the desert. I love the property. And that is something that is still very important to me. But the tiny house, it's that chapter is finished. And I can really tell when I go to my tiny house, because I currently have it in storage. Those of you who have watched other videos may notice that the tiny house was right in front of the rocks where the Jeep is at, and it's no longer there. And it is in storage right now. I haven't totally cleaned it up yet. I still have some work to do before I can actually sell it. But every time I go back, I don't really miss it. I feel this kind of respectful nostalgia for my tiny house, but I don't look at it and think, oh, I made a mistake, I should be back out in the desert. Like, I don't feel that way. And that's a really good thing, obviously, because that means I made the right choice at the right time. So, what is that tiny house all about? In one of my other videos, I once called my tiny house the world's most advanced tiny house, which, of course, wasn't entirely sincere. I was being a little bit facetious about that. I mean, it's kind of hard to say which tiny house would be considered the most advanced, but it did sustain me completely off the grid for a good number of years. So, I feel like boasting about its technological merits is not, it's not entirely inaccurate. So, I'm just, I'm really looking forward to what the tiny house can bring to the next owner. I mean, I think it is so different and it's so unique, even among tiny houses, that it'll be pretty cool to see what the next owner decides to do with it and what they can come up with, how they can improve it, how they can make it fit for the adventures that they want to have in their life. Well, I've talked about the fact that I'm selling my tiny house, but I haven't really talked about the tiny house itself. Now, one thing that you're definitely going to need, if this is something that you're even considering purchasing, is a way to transport it, because Galatea Meridian is very, very heavy. In fact, it is about 20,000 pounds. That's why I had a Ram 5500 to be able to tow the tiny house. For the benefit of those of you who have never seen my videos, this is when I was driving my tiny house out to my land in the desert. As you can see, the tiny house is not so tiny. and even my massive truck looks small in comparison to the trailer. You cannot tow my tiny house using a Ford F-150 or even an F-250. A Ram 1500 or 2500 won't cut it either. You need something far more robust. The tiny house is 102 inches wide and approximately 38 feet long. It's also important to note, when you connect it to the fifth wheel ball hitch, the jacks are manually operated. They are not hydraulics. Therefore, it's a bit of an effort to crank them up and down. You won't be hitching this trailer up quickly. It will take some time. The tongue weight is around 6,000 pounds, too, so the truck needs to be capable of handling that. The outside of the trailer is clad in metal siding with a matching metal roof. The porch and the rear of the trailer are stained wood, and the back of the house has a folding ramp which can be used to transport a motorcycle on the porch area. There is also a tiny storage shed in back where you can keep tools and supplies, and the shed also houses a 6-gallon electric water heater. Well, that pretty much covers the outside of the tiny house, so let's take a look inside. The interior contains a bathroom, kitchen, living space, and a bedroom area. I created the floor plan to be totally open, with no inside walls, like a studio apartment. Knowing the space would be limited, I didn't want to make the living area feel confining. Plus, there are plenty of double-paned windows to allow for a huge amount of natural light into the space. I designed the house to be 100% self-contained with 6 solar panels, 800 amp-hours of batteries. Note you can also switch from solar panels to a standard RV hookup and power the entire house from a 30-amp RV connection. Your heating and cooling is provided by an electric Pioneer mini-split HVAC system. There are 400 gallons of fresh water and 100 gallons of gray water storage. There's no need for black water because the bathroom uses a composting toilet. And yes, you heard that right, 400 gallons of fresh water. And since water weighs about 8 pounds per gallon, I highly recommend you always have near empty water tanks before transporting the house. There's also a robust angle fridge and freezer, plus a small microwave oven. With an adequate supply of food and full water tanks, you have everything you would possibly need to stay off-grid for weeks or even months at a time. The home also includes a 4G signal boosting antenna and a weather monitoring station. And I speak from experience when I say, sustained 25 to 30 mile per hour crosswinds may rock the trailer a lot, but at 20,000 pounds, it's not blown over. All in all, this is one of the most capable off-grid tiny house builds anyone has ever created. And I've spent enough time in it to know how well everything functions, and I am living proof it can sustain the occupants in extreme climates and environments. Thank you so much for checking out this episode of Luthorville. A chapter closes for me and hopefully opens for one of you. In the words of Gandalf the Grey, the road goes ever on and on, down through the door where it began. And you know what that means? What Gandalf is actually telling you is that you need to pursue your dreams, make them come true. But if your ambitions don't scare you, they're not big enough.